The combines are rolling. The harvest is well underway. We're going to talk about that and other things having to do with the grain and the bean harvest with David Rappa this morning, Director of Grain with Allied Cooperative at the Tomah facility. And David, down there around your area of Tomah, I was through there last weekend, and boy, oh boy, the fields are getting bare in a big hurry. The farmers are busy.
Yeah, we've been at it here for about 2.5 weeks, and conditions have been pretty good to get soybeans off that warm weather we had. And I'd say in 2 weeks, we've probably ripped off 80-90% of the soybeans out there.
What are the farmers telling you as far as yield, as far as moisture? What about the crop? Any problems with any disease this late in the season? What have you heard? What have you seen?
On the soybean side, we've been seeing yields from 50 to 70 bushels per acre. Everybody's been pleasantly surprised there, and some guys have been seeing record yields on their farms. So with price being where it is, the yield really makes up for it, where a guy can actually pencil out a little bit of a profit.
And as far as the corn harvest, of course, we know that the chopping's pretty well done, but what about the corn harvest now with the combines? How far along are you seeing that happen?
Corn's one of two cases. It's either too wet to go on. The guys that applied fungicide, we're seeing moistures in the field. Some of the guys are hanging around 30%, but then we have guys that are actually starting to combine already. And they got hit with some late disease pressure coming off anywhere from 16 to 20%. A lot of southern rust, tar spot, and anthracnose. And fields are starting to go down, so we decided to put the corn head on, but yields weren't as good as they were expecting, the end of July, but they're still probably in that 180 bushel per acre range on the disease stuff. So overall, not too bad.
How prevalent have they been reporting the disease, the southern rust and the tar spot and things like that? Is it pretty prominent where you are?
Probably southwest Wisconsin is probably the most prominent area where we've seen it. But, it's very selective on what variety you planted, and the guys that applied fungicide applications are faring way better than the people who ignored it.
What about marketing is the key? As you said, we've lost maybe a little yield, but as far as the marketing, what kind of recommendations? Have you got storage facilities? Because, we know what the Chinese bean market is, but what kind of discussions are you having with farmers in the marketing area?
On the corn side, we've been encouraging to sell it off the combine. We're going to be carrying out over 2 billion bushels, and we don't see a lot of volatility in the corn market. Even though there's good demand, there's just a lot of supply. On the soybean side, there's strong futures carries in the market, so we've been encouraging guys with on-farm storage, stick them at home, sell the carry, take the basis appreciation. When it comes to the elevator side, the storage charges might eat up some of that carry, so they just kind of got to make the decision when they want their cash flow. I mean, with the interest costs of 3 to 4 cents a month on grain, you got to calculate that stuff in too. So
absolutely. Hey, have we got any fall specials on seed or inputs or anything like that we should talk about now that farmers can maybe save some money for next year?
Well, no, a lot of the seed guys usually have 0% financing and stuff like that for early buy, and I'm not too into the keeping track on what fertilizer prices are there, but prepaying, if you got extra revenue, you're trying to get rid of some tax obligations, it's always a good idea to spend it on crop inputs rather than buying paint or land or something. So
yeah, hey, what do you expect for deer hunting season now when we get to Holy Week in Wisconsin? Most of the corn should be down, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I would expect corn harvest to really ramp up here in about a week. We're 10% heavier on corn acres this year in our trade territory, so I would think as long as the weather cooperates, the vast majority will be off, but there's still going to be a few stragglers up there because the system can only take so much in a short amount of time. Us as a co-op, we put grain on the ground bagging, and we have sales on to try to accommodate everybody, but the system, unfortunately, the co-op system, we had some, you built a lot of these facilities in the early 90s and 2000s, and guys had 4-row, 6-row heads now, and we got most guys are running 8 to 12-row heads, so it comes off that much faster.
Boy, that is for sure. That's right. So we'll get her done. But again, the bottom line, I'm sure you're telling your farmers, harvest safely, right?
Yeah, that's the most important in my mind.
Absolutely. So, again, harvest safely, and the grain is coming off in the beans. David Rappa with us, Director of Grain at the Tomah facility for Allied Cooperative. David, have a good rest of the fall.
Yep, you too.
With David Rappa from Tomah Allied Cooperative facility, I'm Bob Bosold.